Welcome to the Sagas and Sass show, brought to you by Geek Saga Entertainment. I'm Tara, along with fellow host Jonathan and special guest Nate.
In this episode, we'll be discussing all things Jurassic, the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World books and movies, that is. If you're watching live, join us in the chat, or after the fact, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Sagas and Sass to continue the conversation.
Please note that the views expressed in this show are those of the host as individuals and do not necessarily represent the show as a whole. And don't forget that we now have a Patreon with 10 tiers ranging from $1 a month to $40 a month. It offers tons of ways to support us and receive some great perks in return. Check it out at patreon.com/geeksaga_entertainment. And as this is a special episode and we have a special guest, we're all going to introduce ourselves. So Jonathan, you can just say your name and whatever you want to say about yourself. You got some exciting things coming up, though. So
I'm Jonathan. I'm the normal elderly host of Sagas and Sass.
and also going to be on a San Diego Comic-Con panel.
Yes, on podcasting. So that's exciting. First time I've been on a panel at San Diego Comic-Con.
Well, that'll be fun. I wish I could be there for that one. All right. So Nate, what about you? Introduce yourself. If you have social media, you can share it. If not, that's fine. Up to you.
Hey, hi. Yeah, my name is Nate. I'm not so active with con stuff and this kind of stuff. This is actually the first live stream I've ever joined to. So I'm just kind of happy to be here. Happy to be a part of it.
All right. Well, as I said, I'm Tara, and you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at A Geek Saga, and via my website, ageeksaga.com. So, oh gosh, this is going to be a big, long discussion. As Jonathan mentioned, we're going to be discussing all things Jurassic, and that means park and world. So we're going to start with First Came Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. That would be a book for those of you who may not know somehow that the first movie was based on a book that did come out first. And Jurassic Park, the book, was actually inspired by a scientific study about how amber could preserve intracellular structures in an organism that was trapped inside. I think the original study was for a fly, not a mosquito, as it happens in the book and movie. But I find it really interesting that Crichton saw this little study and turned it first into a screenplay about cloning a pterodactyl. And part of me is like, was that his favorite dinosaur? Because there's also a lot of, the flying dinosaurs in the first book. I think they're mentioned in the second book, but they're not super prevalent. But it seems interesting that he would choose a pterodactyl of all things. And he wrote that screenplay in 1983, which was either the study was either 82 or 83. And then he realized there wasn't much of a story there, so he turned it into a book that was written from a kid's point of view and was set in like a theme park type setting. But apparently, like, everybody hated it. And they were kind of all saying, this should be in an adult POV. Like, I want to read something that's from my perspective. So he finally rewrote his, dinosaur theme park book in, well, there are some kid POVs. Tim particularly has, I think it's just Tim in the first book has some POV chapters or whatever, but it is mostly adult perspective. That was published in 1990. And I did want to touch on the fact, have both of you seen Westworld?
The original or the remake?
Either or.
I've never seen the original. I have seen the remake.
I have not seen all of the remake.
But you saw like the first season or so. Yeah. So the original movie is terrible. It's not as terrible as its sequel, Future World, mind you, but it is terrible. But it was written and produced by Crichton, and it's pretty obvious that that movie came out in, I believe, 73, and it's pretty obvious. But even, watching Westworld, the TV show, I'm sure you can get an idea that it's basically the robots, take over this theme park that they are kind of supposed to be uh, ensconced in safely just for funsies for the people. But yeah, it's pretty obvious that Crichton's decision to set this dinosaur story in a theme park has a lot to do with what he'd already done with Westworld. Of course, Westworld is robots and not dinosaurs, and the robots in the Westworld theme parks revolt like way after the park's been open for a while. But otherwise, it's basically like the same major plot points. So now, all that said, while the novel was technically first, it was optioned by Steven Spielberg before it was even published, which I actually read that recently. I think it was when I was kind of just reading the books and getting curious about publication dates and everything. But it's pretty rare these days that things get optioned before they're published, unless they're a sequel to something, which Jurassic Park obviously was not. So I found it really interesting that Spielberg just knew of Crichton enough, and I guess probably saw a synopsis and was like, "Oh, I'm making a movie out of this." Now, get into the meat of it and let you guys say some stuff so that it's not just me reciting factoids the whole time. So, Jurassic Park the movie was released in June 1993. It was a huge success. It was like it grossed. I did have to look this up because I had no idea. Over $914 million worldwide, and became at that time the highest grossing film ever, and was only unseated by Titanic in 1997. So it held that position for 4+ years, I believe. Now, so you guys obviously both, I'm guessing both saw it in theaters. Do you remember seeing it in theaters? Do you, what were your first impressions? Nate, you go first because this is your first time. So let me know like what you remember about seeing it in theaters and first impressions. If you don't mind saying how old you were, that's fine. If you do, don't worry about it.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah, actually, like seeing Jurassic Park in the movie theater was one of my earliest memories. Actually, I was like 5.5 years old, and
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I remember like very vividly. Uh, I went with my mom to see it, and I got so scared during the Dilophosaurus Dennis Nedry scene. I had to run out of the theater just for a bit, and then I came back, and then I kind of made my mom take me several times after to in case I missed anything, even though it was only like a few minutes maybe that I missed. But it was seminal for my childhood, seeing that. At the time, I was already a big Star Wars fan, but Jurassic Park was just something else completely. It really, I don't know, it was incredible to see in a theater too at the time, early '90s. It was unforgettable.
So I saw it in the theater, probably, if not opening night, the next night, and it was with my father. Which is not uncommon since I went to almost all science fiction movies between the ages of, well, birth and 40 something, with 40, I'll even maybe closer to 50 with my father. um, it was something we like to do together. And I will never forget his eyes just bugging out the first time the dinosaurs. I mean, his expression was, "Oh my God!" I mean, much more than he was more amazed than I was, because I think he grew up on the old Ray Harryhausen stop motion um, animation of the '50s, and how far things had come from the '50s to the '90s just blew his mind at the time. Um, I actually had read the book; he had not. Uh, and I, at the time, remember thinking the movie's really, really good, but I missed some of the technical aspects of the book.
Yeah, Crichton did have a habit of being very scientifically explicit, specific. Like all of the above in his books. I've actually read quite a few of them now, but I mean Jurassic Park remains my favorite. Even though rereading it again recently, I was like, oh god, the writing is not great. Like it's really not good. Like
The what? I'm sorry. What was not good?
the writing is
Oh,
not good. Like it's not. It's just not. It's really bad. But it's like, oh my god, how did this only got published because Crichton was like a well-known author who probably had a contract and like got published as is. Like the story, amazing. The writing, terrible. Anyway, I saw Jurassic Park in the theaters. I was 10, I guess, 10 and a half. So I was young. It was funny. One of my friends actually messaged me yesterday, like, oh, like, I wish I could be on the webcast to talk about it, but she had something to do tonight. And she was saying she had just seen it, the new movie, like 2 nights ago. And her 10-year-old she was like, I think my 10-year-old's going to end up sleeping in the bed with us tonight. She was so scared. But me at 10, and to be honest, I've never been very like frightened of horror movies or anything like that. So like the jump scares certainly got me, but the rest of it, like it didn't frighten me. And I just remember being in awe of how amazing it looked, like almost being, knowing in the back of my mind this isn't real, right? But being so, I think this is the first real movie that I went to as a kid. I definitely remember movies before that, but they were the ones I remember. I'm pretty sure I hadn't ever gone to anything other than like a Disney animated movie. Funny enough, my first theater memory was Oliver and Company. But yeah, so I don't think I'd ever been to a live action movie in the theater. And if I had, it certainly had been a kid's one, not something like this, but I remember feeling so transported and so into all the characters. Um, might have had something to do with my sexual awakening because like 10-year-old Tara was like, Tim is cute, but also like, who's this Ian Malcolm guy in all black? So yeah, I was obsessed immediately. I definitely went and saw it twice in the theaters. It might have been 3 times, but my parents were pretty poor when I was like they were like bottom of lower middle class when I was that age. So I doubt I went and saw it more than twice. Like seeing it twice was probably a huge deal, I'm sure, money wise for them. But I remember seeing it more than once, and soon after, obviously I hadn't read the book yet, but soon after that, I mean, I'm talking within a few months, maybe less of seeing, no, it must have been within weeks of seeing the movie. I was at the grocery store with my mom and they had Jurassic Park, the book, in the checkout line. You know how they used to have like a little area of paperback books in the checkout lines of grocery stores. And I begged my mom to buy it for me, just begged. And she's like, I don't know if you should be reading this, Tara. Like, this does not look, she kind of just, I don't know, this doesn't look like a book for kids. And I'm like, please, please, please. I was a pretty high reading level. And I think she was less worried about me not understanding it and more like, oh, should my kid at 10 years old be reading this? But she bought it for me and I read it and I probably didn't understand like 50% of it, but I don't have that copy here with me in California, but I still have that book in my house in South Carolina in its like pride of place on my built-in bookcase, and the spine is completely ruined. I don't know how many times I've read it, but so that's how I got introduced to the book. But speaking of which, or well, actually, so did you stay hooked on it after it left theaters? I mean, it might be a little different for you because you were younger, but do you remember seeing it, like when it came out on VHS?
Yeah, I do. I remember whenever it came out on VHS. I think that was like the all black VHS box. I think, if I'm
yes,
remembering, is that
it
right?
was.
Yeah,
You mean
Well, it was
the
all
rental
black with a
one?
little red lettering. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. So got that, and of course toys too.
Yeah.
I was hooked. Yeah.
Oh gosh, I forgot about the toys. That's funny. That's the one thing I forgot about. We had like a yard sale. We call them tag sales in New England, but apparently nobody but my family or people from New England know what a tag sale is. It's a yard sale or a garage sale. And my parents, uh, let my sisters and I, like, they took half the money that we made and they split the other half between my sisters and I. Now I have no fucking idea what these we sold at this yard sale, but whatever it was enough to get me like 30 something dollars. And I bought that T-Rex, like the rubber T-Rex with the little piece that came out where you could see like the gore on the
Ribs.
side. Yeah. My mom was like, "Are you sure this is what you want to do with your 30 something dollars?" And I was like, "Yes." But I also, when it came out on VHS, this was back in the day. Do you guys remember when you couldn't buy movies? Like before you could actually buy them to keep? Because it really wasn't until like the mid to late 90s that it was common for all movies that were released to be available for purchase on VHS. Disney, I believe, started the fad, the trend, whatever, but Jurassic Park was one of the first non-Disney movies that was available for like consumer purchase for an affordable amount of money, because you could buy them on VHS before that, but it was
expensive.
yes, it was
yeah.
what a rental
I mean,
place would pay. It was like $80 or $90.
I was gonna say it was $80 or $90 for a movie. Up before that time, pretty much every movie was $90 to buy the DVD, or actually it wasn't even DVD, VHS tape.
Yeah. But yeah, Jurassic Park was one of the first non-Disney movies that was like available to consumers at an affordable price.
So that would have been like $400 today.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember just waiting for it to come out and my mom being like, "I don't know, Tara, like you don't know for sure that we're going to be able to buy this." And I was like, "No, it has to be available. Like if it's not available, what am I going to do? My life will be over." I'm serious. I was very dramatic about this. Rightfully so. So I know neither of you have read the book in a long time, but I wanted to touch on the movie being pretty darn different from the book. And honestly, the movie was better. That is so rare.
I remembered enjoying the book more than the movie, actually. And I can't. The sad thing is, my memory of the book is almost non-existent at this point. But I do remember. I missed the technical aspects of the book in the film.
Yeah, I mean, I was too young to understand those in the book, so it didn't matter.
And that. So, as I said, at the time, I liked the book better. I've seen the original film much more recently than I've read the book. So,
yeah, for me, it was. I don't know if when I was younger, I really was able to differentiate like one is better than the other. But again, like having reread the book so many times and also reread it again recently, the characters in the book were either completely awful or like way too likable. There was just nothing in between. And the movie did a good job of balancing that.
Yeah, Crichton writes very black and white heroes and villains.
Yeah. So, first let's talk about some of the main characters, Alan and Ellie. Yay. So in the book, Alan liked kids just fine. He and Ellie had never been in a relationship. He mentions like having a wife who died at one point. Ellie is engaged to a doctor in Chicago. She does at least still get an awesome velociraptor chase scene. But, like you said, it's very black and white, and they're both there's no gray areas with these characters. So when you guys like saw Jurassic Park, when you first got into Jurassic Park, when you were younger, I mean, what were your thoughts on Alan and Ellie, or what were your thoughts on really any of the characters at all? Because
in the movie or in the book?
In the movie. I'm going to touch on like some differences between book and movie characters, but I think the movie is kind of what to focus on because there's so many movies now.
Well, I mean, I thought Jeff Goldblum stole the movie.
Didn't we all?
And I thought the second strongest character in the movie for playing the character he played, or at least the acting job, was the guy who played Hammond, who's the actor.
Richard Attenborough, yeah.
Can't remember what his name was. And I always thought Sam Neill was not a terribly great actor, so he was fine.
I mean, I don't watch movies like Jurassic Park for the acting, okay? So
fair enough. Yeah, but they're better when they have good acting.
I agree, but
Oh, and Samuel L. Jackson, of course, was spectacular in his role.
yes, yeah, yeah.
I thought Alan
as
Grant
was the
brilliant.
guy who played Newman.
Nedry. You mean
No,
Desmond Nedry?
oh God, what's the guy's Newman's name?
Wayne Knight.
Thank you, Wayne Knight.
I personally loved Alan Grant. Like he was like this hero character to me, as well as Ellie was, and Malcolm, of course. I thought they were really great characters. And I don't know. I thought maybe it was at the time that I watched it, but I thought Sam Neill was a pretty good actor too. But
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that the funny thing is I didn't even know he was from was he from New Zealand or Australia?
Australia, I think.
I didn't know he was from there when I was younger and found out later and actually found out that he struggled a lot with the accent, with the American accent in the movie, which was a fun little tidbit. I mean, I liked Alan Grant better in the movie because he was like less of like he didn't like kids, like he had flaws, right? And Ellie, I think I'm is kind of was good either way, though I've always just kind of been like after reading the book and knowing that they were never in a relationship in the book, I was kind of like, why did that have to happen? Like, why did that have to be there? They weren't like super romantic or affectionate in the movie. Like, it was literally just kind of a way for Grant and Malcolm to be like at each other, you know? But you mentioned Hammond, John, and I mean, I agree. Richard Attenborough and was great. The character was great because Book Hammond is a huge jerk. Like he's all about the money. He doesn't even really seem to give a shit about his grandkids. Plus, he dies in the book. But honestly, like good riddance to Book Hammond. I liked the sort of like, yes, he made mistakes. He screwed up. He didn't think through things very well. This park was
But he
always
was an optimist.
to fail. Yeah, but he was a benevolent old man, but he still made mistakes. But he wasn't this just sort of it was literally the opposite. The conversation that he has, with the lawyer in the book is like about the money that people are going to have to pay. He's like, yeah, we can charge whatever we want. This is going to make us rich, blah, 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 blah. And speaking of the lawyer, he's actually kind of nice in the book. He has his like little lawyer-esque thoughts and everything, but he ends up being a big part of people getting out of there alive. He also lives, although then he dies in like a car crash or something. Like they briefly mention it in The Lost World in the book The Lost World, and I'm like, why did you
oh
even
yeah,
need
I
to
remember
mention
that.
that? Did you
I
even need
think
to
it was like
mention
I mean that's not as quite as bad as the ending for the child character in Aliens 2 who
No, yeah.
after Ripley spent all the time saving her, dies in like cryogenic freeze or something before the next sequel starts.
uh,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
with Hammond. I thought it was actually maybe better in the book because he had to pay the price for his arrogance and hubris. In the movies, yeah, he like had I don't know, a financial loss, and I guess the loss of his dream. But in the book, yeah, he was killed by compies.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's it's a pretty good good way to punish him.
Now, what how did you guys feel about Lex and Tim? Because they were like switched kind of from the book characters. In the books, Tim is older and he is the one that's good at computers. I mean, sort of. But and Lex is just kind of this whiny little like 7 or 8 year. I mean, all she does is like whine and like want to play baseball and bitch about like their parents getting divorced and how much better their dad is. And so they did a really good job with those dynamics in the movie. They're so much preferable to me in the movie because Tim is the dinosaur nut still. He still knows things, but Lex has more agency, which was, I don't know if there's something between like, because it's not even like a time thing, right? Because the book was published 2 years, less than 2 years before they started making the movie, so it's not like they changed the characters because time passed and they wanted to portray like the girl differently. But I thought that was like a really good. I thought that was a really good change, and I wouldn't say I like loved or well, as an adult looking like watching the movie, I'm like, oh, these kids aren't the greatest, but they're definitely way better than they were in the book.
Not like nearly as annoying, I think. Like, yeah, there was that one scene with Tim, you know, trying to talk about dinosaurs to Alan Grant in the film, but that's like, you know, there is not much else that's annoying about them.
Yeah, they're. I mean, they're still kids, right? But it's not. I do think balancing them out with actual traits. Like they were still the traits from the book, but they balanced out those traits between the two of them, and that helped a lot. I mean, I will never forget Lex like with her Jello. Though I don't know why that's a scene that for some reason just always sticks out in my mind. But what about you, John? Did you? I know you were quite a bit older when the book and movie came out. So did you feel anything like in regards to the kids as characters, or were you just kind of like, this doesn't appeal to me? Oh, can you hear us, Jonathan?
Yeah, no, sorry. Falling asleep here.
Oh gosh. All right.
Long day. I lost it. I'm sorry.
It's okay. All right. Well, we'll move on because we got a lot to cover. Okay. So dinosaurs. There were so many more dinos in the book. Obviously, the reasons for cutting back for the movie are totally obvious, like budget, time, whatever. There's a billion reasons, and all of them are good. They also cut out the whole plot from the book with the raptor nest at the end and all sorts of dinosaurs getting to the mainland, which is what I've never really understood, because the latter especially could have helped ease into a sequel. And speaking of sequels, Crichton had never written a sequel before, and I don't believe he actually ever wrote one again after this. But between fans and Spielberg, he apparently couldn't say no. And The Lost World was published in September '95, I believe, which was less than 2.5 years after the first movie's release, which is crazy to me because I can't finish a book in like 7 years. So go him. But
And the movie sequel came out after
yeah,
a year,
the movie sequel
a
was
year
like
later, right?
97. But I
Yeah.
mean, the only reason Crichton wrote the second book was because
Money.
Spielberg and the fans were begging for it. And I found that really interesting, especially since he had never written a sequel before and he never wrote one again, as far as I know. Also, main point, he brought back Ian Malcolm from the dead because he was such a fan favorite. And I'm putting "from the dead" in quotes because personally, I hold out that there's a chance Malcolm wasn't actually completely, totally dead at the end of Jurassic Park. No one ever saw a body. Like, when they're flying off of the helicopter, Grant asks whoever else is in the helicopter with them, Ellie, Gennaro, no, whoever wasn't at the raptor nest, so it wasn't Ellie or Gennaro, someone who is still in the main building. He's like, well, what about Malcolm? And the person just shakes their head. But then they go to like the epilogue and he's like, it says they never even let them bury or see the bodies of Hammond and Malcolm. And I'm like, for the longest time, I really just, I still choose to believe that he didn't.
Well, I personally think Malcolm died in the first book, but then this was his clone.
There wasn't enough time, though. I mean, not even in like, not just in real life, but in book time. But no, I mean, really, Crichton did say he brought him back because he was a fan favorite. But personally, I was like, why did you even say that, Crichton? You could have kept that. I don't know. He said that. I don't even believe it. I don't even believe it. He never died. I just choose. I choose to believe that. But so, do you think? Did you think he was dead? Because when I read The Lost World,
Actually, I didn't think he was dead.
when I read The Lost World, I was like, wait, did he die? I thought he died. And then I went back and read it and I was like, okay, this is vague. Maybe he didn't die. And this is, 11, 12-year-old Tara.
Yeah. For some reason at the time, I recall I didn't think he had died.
What about you,
I
Nate?
think I think I was surprised by it. Yeah.
Yeah. By him coming
It's-
back, you mean? Or
Yes, by him coming back in the Lost World. I guess
Did
so.
you read
like
the books, Nate? I'm sorry, Nate. Did you read the books before or after you saw the movie?
after?
well, the first
After.
one for sure was after.
But you read The Lost World before the second movie came out.
I think that's after as well. I think I saw the Lost World film and then read the book.
Okay.
I will say, if you were 5 years old and reading Jurassic Park, the book,
Because I definitely read both of them before the actual movies came out.
I
yeah,
think
the
maybe
second one I read beforehand, but
I think Crichton wanted maybe to keep chaos theory in the books, so it was a way to have Malcolm kind of incorporate that.
yeah, no, he definitely wanted chaos theory to be like a part of the things. And okay, I guess I don't really think it was necessary, but I'm never going to argue with Ian Malcolm being a character. Now, all that said, so Crichton writes this book because fans, but mostly also Spielberg, are telling him we want a sequel. And he's doing this knowing that Spielberg is going to make a movie of the sequel. So it interests me that there's still so many differences between what he wrote and what actually, was in the movie. Now, The Lost World is a very different book from the first one. It's a different island. It's Isla Sorna instead of Isla Nublar. It's a very different plot, mostly different characters. There's some new dinosaurs, but it's so there's no theme park. We're told that Sorna was like a production island. It was basically where they like farmed the dinosaurs. The plot is about observing the dinosaurs in the wild or like in an ecological system to determine whether they're thriving or whether there'll be another extinction, which Malcolm, of course, is all like, of course, they're going to be extinct, blah, blah, blah. Dodgson is back, but no one really cares about Dodgson, right? Dodgson, we got Dodgson here. Nobody cares. So there's also Sarah Harding, who is an Sarah Harding, who is an animal behaviorist, and she's a new character, but she's probably the daughter of the Jurassic Park vet, Dr. Harding. It's like so strongly hinted at that it has to be the case. There's no Tim and Lex, but there are still two kids, random kids named Arby and Kelly, who sneak on to the island trip because, like, of course they did. And to be honest, like, even just writing these notes and reading The Lost World again recently, I was having some real movie Alan Grant feelings about kids. just thinking, talking, writing about this. And there are, the T-Rex and the Raptors are still the main like baddie dinos, despite the introduction of Carnotaurus, which have crazy chameleon skills, but in the end just turn out to be kind of whatever because they get scared away with flashlights. So, okay, the movie The Lost World was probably even more different from the book it's based on than Jurassic Park was. But before we get into differences, did you guys notice the elements that it brought in from the first novel? Because this has always been something that I liked about the movie. Well, I liked The Lost World just fine.
When you say elements, what are you talking about? Elements,
Like actual scenes, really.
Well, they have the.
It starts with the little girl on the beach getting attacked by compies.
Right, that I remember.
Okay.
And I remember the Stegosaurus scene.
Yeah, that's
which was sort of similar in my mind to the scene with the Brontosaurus in the first one. I think.
Oh, you mean the Triceratops? Well, so in the first movie, the Triceratops is sick. In the first book, the Stegosaurus is sick.
Oh yeah, yes, you're right. The Triceratops.
Yeah, in The Lost World, the movie has a bunch of Stegosaurus stuff, but it's more about them protecting. There's a lot of like mamas protecting babies in the Lost World. So the specific things I'm talking about, other than the little girl getting attacked by the Compsognathus on the beach at the beginning, is there's a scene where several of the characters hide from a T-Rex behind a waterfall. I want to say it's whoever the fuck Vince Vaughn played, and uh, Sarah Harding and Kelly, the little girl. But in the first book, it was Grant, Tim, and Lex. And then also there's some random guy on the like the bad guy side, quote unquote, that breaks his leg and gets killed by compies, which is what happened to Hammond in the first book. But so in the movie, thank God they at least like narrow it down to just one kid. So we don't get two annoying kids who are just absolutely like there for no reason, because the kids that go there in the book are like they're assisting one of the characters, and they, you know, it's the same plot in that they hide in the RV, the trailer or whatever, and that's how they get there. But in this one, it's like Ian Malcolm has a daughter and her name is Kelly, and she's the one that, you know, goes to the island. And to be honest, I was okay with this in terms of I would rather have one annoying child than two. But also, she like uses gymnastics to defeat velociraptors, and I was
Oh yes.
Yeah, cringe.
why does there need to be a kid? I don't know. What are y'all's thoughts on that? Why does there need to be a kid?
To
Well-
humanize the story, I guess, or to make it accessible to everybody.
I guess.
Well, I was actually going to say, because it's in some ways because it's a Spielberg film aimed at teens and youth. I mean, and most of his films involve kids
Yeah, I mean
that are aimed for that audience. That he's done when he's aimed for that audience.
yeah. So it's basically like what Nate said is kind of similar. You know, you're saying like it humanizes it for like all audiences, and Jonathan is saying, well, that's just what Spielberg does, but because it's for these audiences.
Well, because he always viewed the movies as something he loved as a kid,
Yeah.
and therefore he did a lot of movies from a kid's perspective.
Ugh, fine. Fine. Okay, so also in this movie, there are two groups. We'll call them the hunters and the gatherers. The difference is in the book, the hunters they aren't there to kill the dinosaurs, they're there to collect them. In the movie, it's kind of a combination of both. The hunters are literal hunters led by someone from InGen, but the main guy who is helping them also wants to kill a T-Rex. So they're there to collect dinosaurs, but not just eggs, actual full grown dinosaurs. But also there's this one guy that's like, I'm a game hunter and I'm gonna kill the biggest predator the world has ever known, or whatever the fuck he says. But they're led they're led by this guy from InGen who doesn't exist in any of the books, rather than Dodgson. See, told you, no one cares about Dodgson. And while the gatherers are still explorers and scientists, in the movie they're sent by Hammond, versus in the book it's like this new guy Levine who like discovers the island exists and leads them there. And to be honest, I think that's one of those things where I didn't mind in the slightest. I did think that like Sarah Harding being like a photographer, I think, or like a wildlife photographer versus a wildlife, like an animal behaviorist, was kind of a change. But when it comes down to it, the idea of the movie in which Hammond is still alive, using him to send people there to this island that he still obviously knows exists, was a lot more cohesive than it just being like, here's some random dude you've never met before, and then he eventually happens to be like friends with Ian Malcolm, and then they end up on his Lasorna. It's but again, like, I don't know, especially in the Lost Worlds, realm, I wouldn't say this was a better movie than a book, but I thought that was a good it was a good way to make it cohesive. So I don't know, like, did you guys have, because I don't want to spend too much time talking about this movie, but did you guys like have any thoughts on the whole hunter gatherer plot line and like the people there for dinosaur. How the fuck? I don't know. How the fuck were they gonna bring all those dinosaurs off that island? I was still whatever about that.
Well, I mean, as long as you could knock them out and keep them sedated, I didn't see that as that part of the plot line as too much of a negative. I mean, dinosaurs aren't that big compared to modern ships.
Well, but the whole keeping them sedated thing is like a huge plot point in both books because they're all just like, we have no idea what to give these dinosaurs to like actually keep them sedated. I don't know. It never seemed believable to me, but in the end, hey, they did get a dinosaur off the island. So, oh. What about you, Nate? Like, did you I don't know. This movie was a mess, and it wasn't the worst. It was still fine, but thoughts.
The whole scene in San Diego was preposterous.
Oh, God.
That was pretty preposterous. Yeah, I did still enjoy it, but definitely not quite as magical as the first film, or as good as of adaptation than the first book too, maybe. But still, pretty exciting. Pretty cool scenes, like with the raptors hunting the hunters in the field. That's pretty awesome.
Where they're just like
yeah,
from the sides. For those of you listening as a podcast, I'm making raptor hand movements. Okay, so just last but not least, before I kind of go into the conclusion on this and we move on to the next one, the T-Rex in San Diego. Just why? Just the Godzilla stuff. Like I don't know. There's just
some racism kind of in that scene where there are visible Asian actors and they're looking at the T-Rex as Godzilla. Yeah, it's kind of problematic.
Yeah, it also was just this movie won a lot of raspberries, is what they're the golden
raspberries.
Yeah, it won several of, or at least was, maybe it didn't win, but it was nominated for several of them, including like just absolute non-thought about human life and stuff like that. The whole thing in San Diego was just, oh, for fuck's sake, why? Like there are actual plots in the books where the dinosaurs like little dinosaurs come to the mainland and wreak havoc in other ways. Why did it have to be like the T-Rex stomping through? And why in San Diego of all places? Like I get that that's probably the closest major port to the islands off the west coast of Costa Rica, but also why would you bring a boat with a T-Rex in it to a major port, a major city port?
Well, because they were trying to bring it to the equivalent of SeaWorld, basically.
I mean, I know, but I still wouldn't have made that my first choice as a place to bring this dinosaur. So,
Well, I mean, Hammond had the right idea originally of having, if you're going to have a Jurassic Park, have it on an island so that if they get loose, they can't go anywhere.
Yeah, but then this random,
as opposed to putting them on the mainland of California, but
yeah, that guy. I don't know who this guy was, but he was a dumbass. Okay, so in terms of The Lost World, critics didn't really like it. There were very like mixed fan reviews. It still made a boatload of money. Obviously, it wasn't as good as the first Jurassic Park. We've already talked about how we kind of feel about it. But Jeff Goldblum, it's Ian Malcolm again, chef's kiss. And of course, it was still so exciting as a huge Jurassic Park fan. I'm sure you guys feel the same way to get to see another Jurassic Park movie on the big screen. And that could or maybe should have been it, at least for then. Let's be real. But no, then they had to make Jurassic Park 3. There was no book to base it on. So like, why, other than money?
Yeah, it's only saving grace was it was better than Jaws 3D.
So why? Like, sure, Alan Grant comes back, and there's some Ellie Sattler appearances as well, but that just left me thinking, like, why are they involved in this tragedy? Like, the end all be all was why. Why? The parents because I had to rewatch this before. I actually rewatched all of these movies before the last one came out because I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm rewatching all of them. The parents are fucking annoying. Like William H Macy, great actor, right? He's probably the high point of this movie. Uh, I've never liked Taya Leone. I'm not sure.
Tia Leone.
However you pronounce her name. Never really cared for her, but my God, they're both fucking annoying as hell. The parents are annoying as hell. Like they're screaming for their kid left and right. Then there's that Billy guy who steals the Velociraptor eggs. And honestly, have you guys seen The Room? Like the Tommy Wiseau movie?
Yeah.
Billy looks like Greg looks like in that movie. It's not the same actor, but rewatching it, I'm like, oh my God, is that Greg? No, that's not Greg. But it really looks like him, and that bugged me. Like Billy stealing the Velociraptor eggs because, but that went nowhere because then the human mom, whatever the fuck Taylor, his character, whatever their name was, like I don't care and don't know, gave them back, and that just went away. Like I feel like I'm just Picard right now, like putting my face into my palm.
Yeah, problem solved.
That said, I guess all the stupidity at least made the kid seem less eye roll inducing. Somehow the kid was the best part of this movie, I guess. Like he's a little unbelievable, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Were the parents and Billy so bad that you actually liked the kid? Because that's how I felt.
I think you're right. Maybe the parents were more annoying than the kid, which is a role reversal usually.
Oh, they were for sure more annoying. And that doesn't. I mean, the kid might have not been the greatest either way, but oh my God, the parents.
Well, if you talk about as I recall, and it's been so long, the kid at least seemed marginally competent as opposed to the parents who were just utterly useless.
The parents are utterly useless. The kid is like too competent. How the fuck
any survive on there for
how the fuck any kid, no matter how smart or outdoors savvy, survive for weeks and weeks on that island is beyond belief. Like by himself with no weapons other than I think he has some tear gas canisters, and he somehow collects Tyrannosaur pee, and Grant asks how he got it, and he's like, "You don't want to know." And I'm like, "What the fuck is that supposed to mean?" Like, it's just pee, dude. They're giant animals. Like, I had horses when I was younger. If a horse pees in its stall and you don't you're in there while it's happening, you could collect a cup of horse pee off the ground very easily immediately after. And that's just like a 2,000-pound animal, not like a however many ton Tyrannosaur. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, the kid seems less annoying. There were some things also in this movie that were taken from the novels that weren't used in the previous movies. The dinosaur eggs being stolen, like they were in the Lost World. That's the Billy thing. Then they do the whole like traveling down the river by boat. That's the original Jurassic Park. I mean, it's very like very vague reference because in the first book it's like a raft, and in this one in this movie it's an actual boat. But it was Grant and the two kids that were on the raft down the river, and the raft ends up in the aviary for I think they're like pterodactyl. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. They're winged dinosaurs. So the whole like the general idea of the aviary scene in this movie also came from the original Jurassic Park. But I guess because they didn't want to, or they probably would have felt it difficult to show that they were just territorial animals for no good reason, they had to add babies, and I was just like, okay. And then Billy sacrifices himself.
Just a heads up, we're having a major thunderstorm here, so if I go out unexpectedly,
okay,
you'll know why.
What were you gonna say, Nate?
Oh, I was just saying Billy survives,
Yeah, he survives in the end anyway, so
so no stakes.
Although,
I think there are a couple things that they about Jurassic World or Jurassic Park 3 that kind of impacted Jurassic World though.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be huge dinosaur fights, for one. Although Spinosaurus and T-Rex was very, very fast and, pretty. I don't know. People argue about that too, but I think also raptor intelligence kind of started in Jurassic Park 3 too, um, which was a pretty
Well,
big plot point in Jurassic World.
it's the raptor intelligence was for sure there
In the first one.
in the first two, but very, very specifically in the first movie. But that said, I think they do expand upon it quite a bit well, especially in the movie sense, because there is a lot more about their like family orientations and stuff like that in the first book that don't make it into, like I mentioned, the raptor nests and everything, that don't make it into the movie, that they bring out a little more in the third movie. Like the intelligence is obviously always there, the pack hunting, the following a leader, an alpha, whatever. But yeah, they do expand upon it in the third movie, and I agree, they probably used quite a bit of those ideas from the third movie in the Jurassic World series, trilogy, whatever. Um, Still, I mean, for me, I mean, it was just not good. I'll be honest, watching it again recently, I didn't feel like it was as bad as I thought it was originally, but that's probably because I hadn't seen it in like 15 years or more. Um, I don't know. It was still not great, but it was disappointing, right? I'm right on that. You guys agree. It was like it felt
No,
like
the third one was a train wreck, and it didn't need to be made other than it would make money, and it made money, but not enough that they had a fourth,
I
or they didn't have a fourth for 20 some years.
yeah.
I liked it as a 13-year-old boy, but yeah, it's different now.
Yeah, I was a little bit older than that. Oh god. I don't even think about that. But yeah, it was disappointing that it was just not that great, and it it felt like the series had dropped into B movie territory, right? And then on top of everything, it seemed pretty clear that this was the last Jurassic Park film we'd ever see on the big screen because it didn't do well. Until this whole "but wait, there's more" moment. Welcome to Jurassic World, the trilogy, that is. So now we're finally getting into the most recent stuff. Jurassic World, 2015, I believe this came out. It was basically a reboot of the original, and personally, I think that's why it's the best of this trilogy. But what are y'all's thoughts on that? Like, because it was a true like reboot. Obviously, there were differences, but I'll get into the
Well,
similarities. What were y'all's thoughts on it being a reboot, and that's why it makes it the best, or maybe not, in your opinion?
well, as someone who despises, well, I shouldn't say despises reboots. I despise sequels in general that just repeat ad nauseum the beats
Oh,
from the first film.
yes, yes, I remember your Force Awakens feelings now.
Well, and I felt the same way just recently about Maverick, although of all the ones that have done it, that seemed to work the best. But um, but yeah, in general, it's like I want new movies with these characters that I like or this world I like. I don't need to see what I've seen before. And unfortunately, that's what they seem to think we fans want, and it's a pet
Well,
peeve I have.
it's what some fans want. Jurassic World was problematic in a lot of ways, but I still loved it. What about you, Nate? Like, especially because you were a bit younger, right, when you saw the first two movies, and you were able probably to enjoy Jurassic Park 3 more than I was because you were also younger when you saw that one. So when you got to see Jurassic World, the first of this trilogy, do you think that swayed your opinions of it?
There was so much hype leading up to Jurassic World. I remember, and as a big Jurassic Park fan, I was really excited for it. As a reboot, I think it did take a lot of the elements from the original, but it was actually cool to see it actualized.
Mhm.
The actual park, you could see it. Um, of course, what was going to come. Of course, there are going to be, issues and danger and murder and everything. But
Is
yeah,
it
like
murder if it's dinosaurs? I mean,
yeah, well, maybe not.
I think they're
Yeah,
just following their instincts, really.
yeah, yeah, hunting. Yeah.
If you walk out into a savanna filled with lions, do you really expect to live?
I did think it had some cool callbacks. And like unlike Jurassic Park 3, it did have like a message. It had something to say about,
Mhm.
again, kind of retreading the territory of reckless genetic engineering, and yeah, human advancement and the issues with that. But I still think I agree. I think it was the best of this trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of it being a reboot of the original, like you said, there's plenty of differences for sure, for sure. And I will get into that in a second because the differences are well, honestly, I don't know. For me, the differences were kind of like the things that made it like meh, maybe. I don't know. But they're in a dinosaur park, but it is an actual like you said, actualized dinosaur park. Like the dream is real now. And it has worked apparently for a long time. I have no idea how it got to that point after what happened in the first three movies, but okay, whatever, it happened. There's a couple who's getting divorced who sends their two kids to visit their relative who's like a higher up at the park. Said relative hasn't really been thinking through the quote unquote advances they're making at the park with the dinosaurs. Beanie Wong is back as Dr. Wu. That was cool. There's a bad guy who wants some dinosaurs for bad reasons, and dinosaurs will get loose and wreak havoc. But all that said,
And
what
they've
are our
replaced. Well, I was going to say the one change was they replaced the hunter keeper of the raptors with a more enlightened communicator.
yeah?
I thought that was a slight change.
Well, no, yeah, that's like the first thing I was gonna mention in terms of like what are our feelings on the new things in this movie, which were trained raptors. What the fuck? I'm still like, even watching this again, I'm just not sure how I feel about it. Like, how did this work? Okay, guys, whatever. But
Yeah.
it was
How
still
can
cool to
raptors be trained?
see. Like, and this was before Chris Pratt turned out to be not a good human being. So it's like I'm trying to view this from my like 2015 perspective, in which I'd seen him in the two Guardians of the Galaxy movies and all those years of Parks and Rec, and I'm just like, Chris Pratt, great, he's great. But trained raptors, the dinosaur that wasn't a dino yet still somehow felt less ridiculous than the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3. The T-Rex not being part of the havoc wreaking until the very end, and then basically like ending up saving the people by fighting with the Indominus Rex, which was kind of what happened in the first movie, I guess, with the raptors attacking the T-Rex. So, but what are y'all's thoughts on like the differences? Let's ignore the stupid shit like Claire wearing a dress and running in heels all the time. Who the fuck is running in like 4-inch heels? I don't know. I can barely run in flats these days, but good for her, I guess. What are y'all's thoughts on the things that made this, or the things that separated this from, or that weren't entirely reboot characteristics?
I think for one, Chris Pratt, yeah, like very kind of boorish character. I think this is when it turned into more of an action hero kind of role,
Mm.
rather than the Alan Grant, Malcolm kind of, Ellie Sattler, every person. They weren't really like action heroes. I
Mhm.
feel like, and this turned it into, I don't know.
Speak for yourself. Ellie Sattler is absolutely an action hero.
You're right. You're right. But I guess I just, yeah, like even back, I don't know. I can't really stand Chris Pratt too much either.
Yeah, the things that have come out recently, it's like I said, I'm trying to separate things I know about him now and the way I felt about him going into the most recent movie from the first two movies. So, I mean, I don't know, Jonathan. I know like you're not
Yeah.
a big fan of reboots, but what were your overall thoughts about Jurassic World? Like, did you
Well, I mean, I
enjoy it?
enjoyed it. I certainly thought it was a better movie than actually both the sequels of Jurassic Park. So, from that perspective,
Yeah, you're probably not wrong there.
um, it was good. I don't have the same. I really don't care about actors' political views or what they do on the side as long as they're not really hurting anybody. So the whole Chris Pratt, I pretty much ignore that aspect of it and don't really let that impact my enjoyment of a film.
God, I wish I could.
Um, the uh, what I do remember from the movie was that was they also had an aviary scene in that one too, right? Where
Yes,
they where
yeah,
they
they, like, run a car into it or something, and the
yeah.
pterodactyls, I can't remember which specific type of flying dinosaur they are, but they escape and they actually
And they
wreak
start
havoc.
killing a lot of random people.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was the scene, and I thought that was a bit disturbing. I mean, I don't know why I felt more horrified by the chaos in Jurassic World than the original movie, and it probably because it was total innocents who were getting ripped to shreds.
Yeah, and there were a lot of people, like, a lot of people, but also, the flying dinosaurs, pterodactyls, pterodactyls, whatever I should have looked this up, but I can't remember which flying ones they used in Jurassic World. They were, it's very like the birds, right?
Yes,
Which
that's a
have
good yeah
so, and I have to
good
I
comparison.
this is not something I've ever looked up, but I have to imagine that's what they were trying to evoke. So, the birds has always freaked me the fuck out, so I agree. You're right, it was a lot, but we'll always remember the running of the Jimmy Buffett. Why Jimmy Buffett was in this movie is beyond me, but it was
Well, at
hilarious.
least it wasn't Warren Buffett, right?
Yeah, well, so, okay. Any last thoughts on Jurassic World before we move on to the next one? No? No, you good? Okay.
Hybrid dinosaurs, maybe. I
Well,
don't know
yeah.
how well those work, really.
Yeah, the dinosaur, it's like I kind of passively mention it, the dinosaur that's not a dinosaur, because it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want this. It's not I don't really feel like it's necessary, but they needed a new big bad, I guess. But I mean, like you said, the fight, dinosaur against dinosaur fight, while that did happen with the raptors attacking the T-Rex in original Jurassic Park, the actual big dinosaur fight happened in JP3, and I'll be honest, seeing the T-Rex was great in this one specifically. The T-Rex fighting the big Indominus Rex. So, moving on to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Yes, Jurassic
This,
World
this
was
is the one at the estate, right?
yes, yeah, yeah. Well, it starts on the island, but yeah.
And then
Jurassic
ends
World
up in
Fallen
the
Kingdom.
estate.
Jurassic World was nostalgia porn, but reboot style. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was like nostalgia porn hodgepodge style. Um, to me, this movie was amusing and sometimes thrilling and once in a while upsetting. More often than not, it was really fucking weird, and there were more cheesy moments than I can count. Most of it was reminiscent of The Lost World, which wasn't a great book or movie. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. But at least it wasn't at Jurassic Park 3 level. So they go to the island to be nice to the dinosaurs because, it's Isla Nublar and apparently there's a volcano that's going off and it's going to kill all the dinosaurs. And
They were trying to save them.
Yeah, Claire's been trying to save all the dinosaurs, but it turns out there's also this whole plot to exploit the dinosaurs. Only instead of bringing them to San Diego to start a dinosaur zoo, they're still trying to weaponize them a la Jurassic World. So it was that whole thing was a lot. So I want to hear y'all's thoughts on the fact that this was just like I said, it's nostalgia porn, but less, it's not reboot style. It is like total hodgepodge because what the fuck was going on with this movie? I watched it literally for the second time ever, right before the newest one came out, and I was just like, oh, why?
Yeah, and as I said, I remember it as being so average as to be completely unmemorable.
I mean,
it was competently made. It entertained me during the 2 hours I was there, and I have almost zero recollection of anything in it since seeing it that first time in the theater all those years ago.
Yeah, I mean it feels like the best part of it takes place at the beginning, but then but also there's this random insertion of another like
Child?
new benevolent old man.
And with another child?
Yeah, well, why does he have an evil employee? Why does he have a clone of his daughter? Why are any of these things happening? Like, I don't know. So Nate, what are your thoughts on all of this mess?
Yeah, like you said, he was supposed to be like Hammond's partner, but we never heard of him. Yeah. So like, yeah, like you said, there's kind of like 2 parts to the film. Like the first part, yeah, is pretty entertaining. The second part is totally left field. It seems like, taking place in a mansion with a bunch of rich people. Yeah, it's just not very. I don't know. It feels more. The second part feels more like a horror film.
And I can't be the only one who was like, why is there a clone? A human clone. Why is this happening? Why are any of these things happening? Yeah. And like they're trying to weaponize the dinosaurs, and it's like, okay, so whatever Chris Pratt's character was, Owen trained some raptors, so now you think you can all just buy dinosaurs for millions of dollars and use them like that? And there's also like a new like super raptor. I can't even remember what it was called now, but there's like this new
Indoraptor.
Yeah, Indoraptor. Yeah, I think you're right. So it's like the Indominus Rex, but with more raptor. Because that works.
I mean, the whole idea of weaponizing these animals with very rare situations, I can't see how it would ever be worth your while and time to do that.
Weaponizing animals as a whole, I am insanely against. Don't even get me started.
No, I mean it made sense in the 1700s when we didn't have actual machines that were much more deadly than big animals. But I mean, now it just makes zero sense to invest your time and effort into doing this.
And millions of dollars. What the fuck? So I will say this. This is a random aside before we conclude on this and move on real quick to the last movie. If you don't get or didn't get at least a tiny bit sad when they leave those dinosaurs on Isla Nublar and you see the Brachiosaurus like calling out and like rearing up as this engulfed by flames, I don't know if we can be friends because I still fucking like I don't cry like actual tears, but I'm like, don't cry. It's just a fake thing, Tara. This thing doesn't exist. It didn't actually exist. Don't cry.
Still, you don't really have a heart if you don't shed a tear. Then
that poor Brachiosaurus just like meh, meh, as it watches like its peoples get taken from the island, and so bad. The whole thing on Isla Nublar is so bad. It's somehow the best and also worst part of Fallen Kingdom. And then, they go to the mansion, and of course all the dinosaurs get let loose, and then there's this little clone girl, and it just all gets fucking weird. Like, my conclusion on this movie is it is a weird, ridiculous romp. Like, it's somehow on par with the movie it seemed to copy the most, which was the Lost World, but certainly not on par with its direct predecessor, that being Jurassic World. I'm still like, I was never sure what I was expecting from this movie, but what happened wasn't it. But
Well, that should be that part of it should be a good thing.
I don't know though, but it wasn't, because it was weird and bad and weird. The things that I wasn't expecting, and I do believe it's like a movie that you have to see for yourself to believe it exists. And I say that.
But they had to bring in the whole clone so they could have the third movie plot.
Did they though?
Apparently.
That child, that clone, did not need to exist. So any last
well, but then how do you have the third movie without the clone?
She didn't need to exist in this movie either. But anyway, Nate, any last thoughts on this movie before we move into the final one? Because I know you have to go kind of soon.
But
yeah, I do. I think it was bold, at least. Fallen Kingdom was pretty bold. They took chances, maybe not unlike The Last Jedi, which is something totally else, but I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird film. I agree, Tara.
It's not the worst thing I've ever watched. I don't hate the movie. I just don't understand. And I know, John, you're saying that, oh, well, they had to introduce this to have the next movie. I don't even think that's true, because moving on to Jurassic World Dominion, aka you thought the first two Jurassic World movies were nostalgia porn. Well, hold on to your butts. This movie, you guys, this movie. I saw it nearly 2 weeks ago, and I still don't know how I feel about it. So we're going to start with the lols. Those being lol, dinosaur rescue. I can't remember if they had a name for their dinosaur rescue, but I'm going to call it the ASPCD, American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Dinosaurs. Where they saved the little baby. Like, that was literally just a reason for them to have a cute baby Triceratops in the movie.
And a chase scene.
Yeah, but does anybody disagree? Because that's all I'm seeing here. And then they have the cowboy in with dinosaurs. That was just, I mean, listen, as a Western fan, I was both like, oh my God, I love this. This is amazing. And also, oh my God, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. It did help that they were hurting my favorite type of dinosaur, that being a Parasaurolophus. Love those. I don't ask me why. I've loved them since I was a kid. They've always been my favorite. I think they're cute. They got little hands and a little horn on the head. They're very cute, like cows. Then there's the LOL. Everyone wants the clone girl. Okay, that's the part. Okay. So she sort of needed to be part of this movie so that they could add that part of the plot in, but it was never really necessary. It was literally just, we need to have a kid, right? Again.
No. I think it, well, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And then, LOL, it turns out the clone girl's mom was somehow the most brilliant InGen scientist. I can't get behind any of. I don't know. She didn't need to exist.
No, it wasn't the clone girl's mom. It was the clone girl, or originating.
Well, yes, it was, because she carried her, right?
Well, she carried her, but she was also her clone.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fucking
so she was a clone of her mother.
Yeah, I know. That's weird.
I guess it got the new characters to where was Biosyn again? I can't remember. Somewhere in Europe.
Italy,
that's right. It got the new characters there as a plot device, I guess. Mm-hmm. The whole cloning thing. But
I mean, why couldn't Claire have just wanted to go after that baby? Well, they had a baby. They had Blue's baby. They stole Blue somehow had
oh
a baby.
yeah, yeah.
Blue created a baby
Well,
by
but that
herself.
but that happened in the original movie too. That the
Right.
theoretically sterile dinosaurs were breeding.
No. I get that, but the difference was in the original movie they were breeding because they had like West African frog DNA, and some of them changed sexes, so there were two different sexes, right? Like, so they were actually breeding. In this movie, so Blue's baby is basically like Jesus Raptor. Oh my God, Velocipaster. Raptor Jesus. If you've never seen Velocipaster, it is the best worst movie you have seen
Is
ever.
that a real movie?
Velocipaster, yes, it is. I think it's on Amazon Prime. You should watch it. Velocipaster, look it up. Raptor Jesus over here, Blue's baby. Like, they did not need the clone child because they could have just gone after, I don't know, the baby Triceratops that she was trying to save, or
Or Blue's
Blue's,
Baby or
really
Blue's
probably
Baby
more
for that
likely
matter.
Blue's baby, yeah.
Yeah.
But that said, I will say the Biosyn plot, this felt like something Crichton would have written, and parts of it were actually pulled from the Dodgson Biosyn stuff from Jurassic Park and the Lost World. So there's that. I don't know. Did either of you recognize that? Because I'm sitting in there like, okay, this is like very Crichton, like how they're engineering giant locusts to eat all crops that aren't there. That's so Biosyn.
Well, I
And
didn't remember any of it from the Crichton movies, but
yeah, that's
but
what I'm saying. That's why reading the books was actually, I think people would have
was it,
enjoyed this last movie more if they'd actually read, if they've, that sounds rude, if they've actually read the books. If you have read the books, you will enjoy the third movie, Jurassic World Dominion, more, because that whole plot is like straight out of a Crichton novel. It's straight out of the original two books where Biosyn is trying to do shit like that. So I really liked that. But JFC, what were they trying to do with Dodgson? Like, was it the writing, the acting, the directing? I'm going with a combination of all three, I guess. But it's seriously, at times he seemed so evil. He acted so evil, and then at times he was just super weird.
who?
And Dodgson, the
Dodgson.
the head of Biosyn, and it
He
was
was
like,
an
why?
he was Elon Musk.
Like, why is anybody listening to him though? Because he's so evil sometimes, and then sometimes he's so just like, but he's not Elon Musk, because like, I guess in a way he's supposed to be kind of like that, but like there's nothing there. Like all he did was like, I'm gonna create a place for you to bring these dinosaurs and not tell you what I'm actually doing with them. It was he was a bad, weird villain. He was just, and I do think it was all about the way the character was portrayed. And
He
also,
remi-
why didn't the original Dodgson come back? I looked it up. It's not the same actor. Like, if you're
I
getting
believe.
all,
I think the original actor was involved in child porn or something like that. I thought I
oh
heard
shit,
something like that.
oh
Yeah,
shit. Okay,
that's why. Yeah.
well, okay, that makes sense then.
Hmm.
They got all the other guys back, so I was like, why not this guy? Well, that makes sense.
But like, he's pretty much a new character, right? Like, totally different from that little scene in Jurassic Park, too.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and if you've never read the books, he's gonna be a new character in a lot of ways to you, period, because you've seen him in one scene in the movie, right? And he is a
And
much bigger part. They explain a lot more about him in the books.
Yeah.
But okay, so other than Dodgson, which
Malta.
Malta.
Since I had just been in Malta, it was enjoyable to watch the chase scenes through the streets that I had just walked through, but I did
Oh, yeah,
not.
that's been cool.
It was not nearly as exciting as we did not see any dinosaurs when we were in Malta.
What, they didn't have dinosaurs that just latch onto you? Like, here's the thing. Okay, so you put a laser pointer on somebody, you pointed at them once, and that dinosaur just remembers that person forever until they're dead. That feels very like video gamey to me, and I don't.
Mm.
That was dumb. That was so
It's like when they open the cages, why wouldn't the raptors immediately, kill anything that's close to them?
Because they're trained raptors.
Oh, I forgot.
Well, they're not. Those weren't even raptors anyway. They were a different kind of dinosaur, and
They
I don't
weren't raptors? I thought they were raptors.
No, they were called something else, but they might have been a hybrid. God only knows with these hybrids nowadays. Apparently, these GMO dinosaurs.
But I mean, they had all this. In one sense, it was also the stereotypes of the other, which was a little bothersome. In that they had the dinosaur wet market, which well, we're setting up for the fourth one where you're going to have the dinosaur flu that is.
Don't even talk to me about this. Don't even talk to me about a fourth.
You're saying that that's not already in the plans?
We're not talking about this right now. Okay, so real quick, all the Alan and Ellie, the romance was cheesy, but not.
But you wanted it.
No, I'm saying it wasn't entirely unwelcome, but I personally have never loved their romance because it felt better for Ellie's character that it didn't exist in the book, in the Jurassic Park, the book. And I'm not even talking about the age difference or anything like that. I'm just talking about it's unnecessary. It was unnecessary in the book. And it didn't exist in the book. It was unnecessary in the first movie, but it was cute here. I think I would have felt even better about it in this movie if it hadn't existed in the first movie. If it was like they were coming at this cold turkey and but also these characters like them. Ian Malcolm was in Fallen Kingdom for like a minute where he's like talking about like, why are you doing this? Everything's bad. Y'all are bad. Don't save the dinosaurs. They're bad. And then he just goes to work for Biosin, which like is not something any version of Ian Malcolm ever would have done, in my opinion. But I don't know, like still like he was a badass in this movie. Grant and Ellie were badasses in this movie, even when they were just kind of in dumb situations, like in the room with the locusts, the giant locusts. Like I don't know, Nate. But I know you have to go like very soon, so like
I do. Yeah.
Why don't you give us your concluding thoughts, and then John and I can wrap it up right after you leave.
Okay, about Dominion or about everything?
About Dominion, everything, whatever you want to say. All of your thoughts. Give us them all.
All right, sure. I enjoyed Dominion, although I feel like it didn't quite deliver on its premise. Dinosaurs having dominion over the world, right? We saw in the intro and the conclusion, we saw some of that, and a little bit in Malta. But I think it'd be good to see more of the dinosaurs, wreaking havoc in for normal people too. I don't know, but I think Jurassic World was better probably, but I still think this was pretty good. And yeah, I'm sorry, I do have to go now. So thanks so much for having me, Tara and Jonathan. I had a lot of fun.
I hope we all talk to you soon. Have a good evening.
Right.
All right. Well, morning, right. Wherever it is.
Yeah, morning. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. I mean,
so Nate teaches English in, I believe he's in Vietnam or Korea. I'm not sure which country, but so yeah.
Oh, he lives in Vietnam?
He lives in either Vietnam or Korea. I think it's Korea.
Wow.
I believe it's Korea. But yeah, so it's morning there for him, and he had to go teach an English class, which good for him. Yay. But also I hate to lose our third person so soon because there's so much more I want to say about this. But I don't know, Jonathan, what were your thoughts on, like, did you enjoy the movie? Like, did you?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought it was marginally above a 5 on my 1 to 10 scale. Certainly watchable. Did I enjoy myself during the 2.5 hours it was on? Yes. Did I love the Malta scenes as I had just been there a couple of weeks before, and recognized the streets that they were on, and yeah, so
Yeah, that's cool.
that part of it was really cool.
That's like me whenever they go to like Budapest or Berlin or Paris, you know, it's like all the cities I've been to, and I'm like, oh, I
Yeah,
might do that.
and then of course when you're from DC and you watch Die Hard 2 and you realize that's not Dulles Airport that they're supposed to be at, it annoys you. But anyway, Malta definitely looked like Malta. Um, I found the way they brought the different character generations together much more believable and reasonable than other films have done.
Mhm.
And without it seeming completely preposterous. I mean, you have the semi preposterous of, oh, isn't it convenient that this happened to happen this way? Um, I, they also spent time to introduce another likable new character in the pilot. I have no idea what her name is, but the pilot. And I thought I actually thought the villain was very James Bond esque. And he reminded me of Hugo Drax in Moonraker in the sense that, um, yeah, he was a terrible guy, but he was also a dreamer and a visionary. And so
Yeah, I think that's the part where it fell flat for me, was that so much of the Biosyn plot was Crichton-esque, like was book-esque, like from both Jurassic Park and The Lost World, the books, that for him to be evil but also a visionary felt wrong, because he is not like that at all in the books. He is very much like, I'm gonna
the
take the
Money Man, he wasn't he
dinosaurs.
the Money Man,
He,
and Hammond was the visionary, as I recall.
well, he's like a science, like he's like a scientist and also a money person somehow, and I think that also speaks to a lot of how Crichton felt about modern science, let's be real. But um I I, I think his like eccentricities in Jurassic World Dominion didn't sit well for me, because this is a character I know so well from the first, like from both books, and granted, again, he is only in that one scene in the first movie, and he's not in the Lost World movie at all. So they're bringing him back, and I felt like it was just like, we're gonna shove some nostalgia at you, here's Biosyn and Lewis Dodgson, but like he's also not at all the Dodgson that's not even true. He was at times the Dodgson I remembered from the books, but he was at times just so like it was more like he was like flighty and like unsure of what he was doing. Like, I almost wondered at one point if what he was doing, because his whole, at one point he was talking about like, oh, we're gonna make medical steps, whatever, like we're gonna do great medical things with the DNA from these dinosaurs. And I was kind of wondering, after some of the scenes where Alan and Ellie first meet him, if it was because he was like suffering from like early stages of dementia. Um,
Hmm.
but then
They didn't
he,
go there.
but then in the end, he just turns out to be evil. And I think it would have been a little more like easy to swallow if you find out that, okay, sure, he's doing these bad things. Like he created these giant locusts that will only eat crops that aren't Biosyn seeds, and that's bad. But also he's doing other research because he has, early stage dementia, and like, there was no like good motive behind what he was doing other than money. But then also really wasn't thinking about the monetary, like about any other aspects of it, because like they push so many times throughout the movie, this is going to cause like worldwide famine. This is like going to cause an extinction event possibly. Like there were some really interesting.
Those locusts were horrible. That was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen as far as these movies.
So
Those
what I'm
locusts.
getting at is you really don't like flying things.
Well, I really don't like giant bugs. Do not appeal to me. I mean,
Oh no, they don't appeal to me either. But also, like your comments about the was it the aviary and
well, yeah, but it was also the aviaries just coming by and just like grabbing people
yeah,
off the street was just so memorable. And the birds did creep me out too. So
yeah, that's what and I'll, the locust thing, I think freaked me out more than the flying dinosaurs did in Jurassic World because grasshoppers freak me out, which is weird because when I was a kid, I used to catch them all the time and like, put them in little containers, like little not like glass containers with no breathing holes, but like a little like we had little like hermit crab containers and I would like catch grasshoppers and it was like a fun thing I did as a kid, as a tomboy or whatever you call them. And yeah, yeah, the giant locust and ew, ugh, bleh. But it was such a good plot and I just felt like they didn't do it justice because they had the villain kind of like all over the place. But I did like the Alan and Ellie stuff. I love that even though Ian Malcolm, it made no sense to me why he would go to work for Biosyn. Like in no world would Ian Malcolm go to work for Biosyn. He would
oh, I don't agree with that. I don't.
immediately be like, chaos, no. Like he didn't, because that's the thing, like the way it was portrayed is he didn't go there to prove they were doing something wrong. He stumbled into that. He went there
I
because
don't
they
even think he
offered.
stumbled. I don't think he stumbled into it at all, ever. I don't think he stumbled in anything. I think the other
Oh yeah,
agent
that
told
one
him.
guy, yeah. Oh, exactly. And that's the thing. Like
So,
I don't I don't
well, yeah,
see Ian
I can see.
Malcolm.
I see. I disagree with you that he would never go to work there. I could easily see that character doing that because he's older, he's more jaded, and it's like, oh, I may as well cash in. I can see that.
I don't see him
he
as
was
a.
always a cynic to begin with, and cynicism by the time you're that age and you're starting to realize, yeah, I need to make my retirement. They're going to pay me great gobs of money. What the hell?
I guess we have to agree to disagree on that one because I hate the idea that Ian Malcolm would just forego all of his chaos theory stuff to just
Well,
go work
I
for
don't think
a
he
giant
gave it
corporation.
up at all. I think he was I think he was being paid great sums of money to lecture whatever the hell he wanted to lecture, and I think that's what he
True.
was doing. And it's more of, and that's why I said the cynic. He's like, oh, these guys are going to pay me great gobs of money to lecture their staff. Sure, what the hell? I'll,
Well, uh, on that note, just to move on to like close this out a little bit, there was less crisp rat, and I know you don't really think about people's politics or whatever religion, whatever. I do though, and so, but the thing is, so do production companies, right? And his character in this movie was very like played down. And I wonder if they played down his role because of the recent drama surrounding him, or if it really. I mean, I think there's like a 50-50 chance that they maybe did that, or maybe they were just like, no, we want to focus on the original characters because we've got them back.
I would bet if you actually do the time on screen that Pratt probably had more time on screen than any of the other characters.
I don't think more. I think it was probably even with quite a few people, but I think that it's less about time on screen than it is about like the story. I mean, I kind of expected him to die. I kind of hoped that he would die. When he was like telling Claire, you know, the clone girl, whatever the fuck her name is, nobody cares, needs a mom and everything. Like he I think he certainly had less screen time than some characters, and I think had he definitely had way less screen time. And part of that is this was less of a him and Claire movie than the first two were, but I don't know. Either way, there was less time of him and his character was played down, and I was fine with that. And I will say this though, speaking of, I actually thought he would die. I know that it didn't happen in the earlier movies, right? None of the none of the major good important characters died in earlier movies. But it felt like in this one, the conclusion of the saga, please let it actually be the conclusion of this saga. It felt like at least one of the good and important characters should have died, and none of them did.
None of
And
them
that was
did.
like people were saying, sorry, people were saying that Malcolm was the one who's gonna die, and I was actually like, no, 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 no. And then when there was the whole like Ellie and Grant thing, I was like, oh god, one of them is gonna die because they're doing this whole like bringing back the romance, and like they're not gonna bring that back. Like one of them is gonna die, and nobody died. Nobody died. They all survived. All of them, even the new pilot person. Like they all survived, and that felt really cheesy to me. One of them should have died. If this is the conclusion of the saga, like somebody
but it's not. You think this is the conclusion to the saga, and I'm like, no
you
chance.
still don't think it is?
No. They will milk this cow for as long as they can. I mean, it may be the last one that they do for.
There's going to be a TV show next, right?
Well, possibly. Though they sort of tried to do that with Terra Nova, but no, I think that the IP is such a premium; it's so much easier to sell, and you're guaranteed to make some money, and there's no chances being taken in Hollywood anymore. I think we will see another Jurassic Park movie. Do I think we need another Jurassic Park movie? No.
No. No. And the thing is, like, Nate kind of hit it on the head where no, was this as good as Jurassic World? No, it wasn't. And they do bring back like they do bring in some new dinosaurs. There's that bird looking one with the hand things, and yeah, I mean, they brought new dinosaurs in like pretty much every movie, really. And I'm not just talking about the fake ones
Right.
that they create. I'm talking about actual dinosaurs that existed that we have. I mean, at the very least, skeletal proof of. Um, and I think that I don't know. Like, do I think there's somewhere else they could go with this story? Yes, but I don't want it to be a movie. They do have like that Cretaceous camp. It's like a animated show on Netflix or something. I've never watched it because I don't care. But like I love Jurassic Park so much, but I do not care about some kids like animated show about it. And I I don't think there's nowhere that they could go with this, especially knowing that there's still dinosaurs out there in the wild and they have to get to the sanctuary that apparently is existing now where the biosim facility was somehow. But I I just don't want another like attempted blockbuster movie about this shit. Like I really like I mean going back to the OG, I nothing is ever going to top Jurassic Park for me in terms of I got to see it in the theaters when I was a kid. I mean, I'm sure it's like how people saw like how people felt when they saw Star Wars when they were a kid. And don't get me wrong, I also have those attachments to Star Wars because I did get to at least see that in the theaters in the 90s, but nothing is ever going to top Jurassic Park for me personally as like the first sci-fi, movie I got to see in the theaters and just got completely obsessed with. And I've I have my qualms about The Lost World was fine. Jurassic Park 3 was bleh. Jurassic World was good. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was This movie, I'm still kind of unsure how I feel about it because I really loved all the stuff they did with bringing back these old characters and stuff, but I also am just like, I recognize it. I recognize it for the nostalgia porn that it is, and it being nostalgia porn doesn't make it a good film.
But the irony is, the person I felt terrible for in this movie, at least in the beginning, was Alan Grant, because it's like here was this dinosaur expert, this world-renowned dinosaur expert, who's now his whole career is sort of a has-been, as he's like looking at these fossils of dinosaurs when there are live dinosaurs he could be studying, right? I just thought it was interesting
Yeah, no, for sure.
that he was the dinosaur.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, there's definitely some symbolism in there that well, I mean, in a way, even not so much Ellie because she had clearly purloined her paleobotanist career into something that was more current, but even Malcolm with his like chaos theory stuff, it's like, okay, all the chaos things happened. So what you gonna do now, dude? And in that respect, I guess I understand where you're coming from about understanding why he went to just be kind of a speaker at Biosyn and make some money. And I think he makes a comment at one point like, I've got like several kids to to
Pay
support,
for, right?
which is also just like, okay, that okay. That's a movie thing. Bring Kelly back and then we'll talk.
Is it my? I think his first movie was Earth Girls Are Easy.
I don't know.
You never saw Earth
The one
Girls
that
Are
made
Easy?
him big was The Fly. I know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no, The Fly made him
I've never
big.
seen Earth.
You never saw Earth Girls Are Easy?
No.
Based on that great song, Earth Girls Are Easy?
Was it a great song? No, I've
No, it
never
wasn't a
heard
great
this.
song, and it wasn't a great movie.
No, I was being sarcastic. I've never heard it. But like, I mean, here's the
But
thing
it
about
had
Jeff
Gina
Goldblum.
Davis in it.
He is not a conventionally attractive person, but everything I've seen him, I think like I said earlier, I think that was like part of my sexual awakening was like, oh, I'm 10 years old. Tim is cute, but who is this old man?
Well, it's interesting you say he's not attractive. It seems like everyone, or at least I knew a lot of women who seemed to find Jeff Goldblum attractive.
Oh,
So
he's so attractive, and then he was so good in Thor Ragnarok, and I mean, he's good. And I've seen him in other things too. I don't want to talk about that, but he's good in like everything he does. And man, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna lie. 10 out of 10.
oh, okay, it was definitely not his first movie. He's actually been doing stuff since 1974. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and he is a good actor. Like he really is. I've seen him he's been cheesy in a lot of stuff, but I've seen him in some things where it's like, "Whoa, I wouldn't have, as an actor like his talent shows. Um but yeah, I don't know. It was just really great for me to see all these actors from this movie that I just was so obsessed with as a kid come back together and be such major parts of this franchise again because I think that was what in Jurassic World, because it was a reboot, I still felt that sort of awesome nostalgia feeling, and I think Fallen Kingdom fell short for me because despite its like 2 minute or less appearance of Jeff Goldblum where as Ian Malcolm, where he's like, oh god, kill all the dinosaurs, nobody cares, like it was its own thing, and it also was just weird as fuck. And then we get this movie. I do think this movie was better than Fallen Kingdom. And
Yes, I agree.
it
I
was certainly
completely
better
agree.
than Jurassic Park 3. I
Yeah,
I don't
I would actually rate it probably the third of the series.
after Jurassic Park and Lost World.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would do the same. Although I think it's like very close to the Lost World only because it has all the characters I love so much. And for me, really, yeah, I know Ellie Sattler appeared briefly in Jurassic Park 3, but she was a like seeing her on screen was a defining moment in my childhood in terms of getting to see this strong, intelligent, brave as fuck female character, you know, just and I know the romance between her and Alan Grant was there in the first movie, but like even watching it again a billion times, like it's there, but it's like a very tiny side point. It's not really a big part of her character. She is her own character. She is her own person. And seeing her in this movie, it was a little disappointing that she was super like, "Oh, Ellen," but
Well, I mean,
she's still there. But she's still there with her bravery and with her own career and with her own like thoughts and feelings. And I think that that is like what really brought me back to like I just
so it,
my
like,
dog is named Ellie after Ellie Sattler.
so going back to the romance and the one of the problems I find with Hollywood in that they seem to cast middle-aged to old men with ingenues as their romantic partners way too often. And that could have, and while there was romantic tension in the first Jurassic Park, it was never clear that they were dating. And then this movie indicates, well, she had the good taste that she just didn't fall for him right away when she was a postgraduate student who's 25 years old and hasn't really seen the world, and falls for this 45 to 50-year-old guy. Um, she went out, she had her life, she married someone, and now, you know, in the twilight of her, I would say the twilight of her prime, uh, she's, you know, the the match makes a little bit more sense when, but even so, I mean, eh, the character's
Well,
still 20. There's a 20-year age gap between the two, so
right. Well, I'll say this. No, they were definitely together in Jurassic Park. There are
you
vague
think they were together? I
oh no
didn't
no no
pick that.
they in the movie, yes, they were definitely together. Yes. Because she's talking about having kids and he doesn't want them, and it seems pretty clear that that's why they break up, especially when you get into like
I
Jurassic
never
Park
saw
being
them as
kind of
I'll be honest, I never saw them as a couple in the first one.
I didn't really either as a 10-year-old, but then when I watched it, you know, over and
I
over
was
and over again.
25 when I saw it. I should have seen that if there was.
Yeah, no, no, they were supposed to be together, and
They weren't in the book though.
no, they were not. She was like 23 and she was engaged to some doctor in
Right,
Chicago.
as I said, I never picked it up, and maybe it's because I had read the book that I just didn't see it in the movie.
Yeah, that might be why, because I read the book after and I was like, oh, they weren't together in the book, and
Yeah, and
I
I might have
liked
just
that.
read it as they're not together. Yeah, I
I
just probably
like that
saw it in my
better about
mind
the book. So
as they're not together in the book, so therefore they're not together in the movie, and it's just,
yeah,
a little bit of friendly flirting, but nothing
yeah,
significant.
and I I I think that I mean I agree with what you're saying though. Like it seems more like realistic, that she's been through, life and shit, and she's gone back to this person that she always cared about, and they have that age difference. But the funny thing is, like,
They don't look that different.
not in they never, to be honest, they didn't in
They
the first
never did,
movie.
really. Yeah.
Yeah,
He
when
look.
I
He look. He does not show his age.
yeah, and when I watched the first movie, actually it was a long time. No, I think it was recently that there was like an article about, oh, they were together and she was like in her early to mid 20s and he was in his 40s, and this should have been weird and blah blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I honestly thought that they aged Ellie Sattler up in the movie, because I knew she was young in the book, and when I first watched it, I just kind of assumed they were both like in their 30s. And that sounds really rude about Laura Dern,
Laura
but like,
Dern was like 23 or 24 when
she
Jurassic Park came
was,
out.
but I had no idea she was that young. But also, I mean, my mom looked way fucking older at 39 than I do now. Like, it's I think it's a I don't know, generational thing, taking care of yourself. I don't know what it is. Like, my mom doesn't drink, she's never smoked. She's a super healthy person, but like, she absolutely looked way older at 39 than I do at 39. And I think that, looking back now, like, I just assumed that Ellie was the same age, or, within a few years of Grant. And now it's like, oh God, no, they were supposed to be 20 years apart. They're still like 20,
Yeah,
almost 20
I
years
mean,
apart. It's
it's not. It's
crazy.
not getting onto improper relationships that don't fly today. I mean, it wasn't quite as well. Assuming you're right, and they had the relationship in Jurassic Park, it's not quite as bad as Indy and Marion Ravenwood in Indiana Jones, where she was a teenager.
Yeah, that was fucking weird. Yeah,
um,
no, but they absolutely did have the relationship in the first movie. But I mean, as a kid, and I mean, I'm talking like, it was recently, like within the last few months, there was some article about it that came out. And I was like, wait, she was actually supposed, I did not know that Laura Dern was that young when she did the movie. And I did not know that Ellie Sattler was supposed to still be that young. Like, I thought they had aged her up, and that her and Grant were, let's say, less than 10 years apart in
yeah,
age. I was
so
thinking she was like 30,
yeah,
early
and she
30s.
was born in '67, the actress. So that means she was
So,
23. So that means she was actually the same age as Ellie was in the books when
yeah.
Jurassic Park the
And
movie came out.
again, I had no idea. And it's so weird to me that like, well, not even weird. No, I mean, looking at, looking at pictures even of real people, like my family and stuff. Like I said, I love my mom. She has not aged hardly at all. Like, you would not look at my mother and say this woman is in her 60s. But when she was my age, she looked so much older than I do now. And I it wasn't because she lived a hard life. Like, I think it was just, I don't know, it's better skincare. I don't know
Well, I
what
mean
it is.
that is part of it. If people, no one our parents' age wore sunscreen.
True.
It just was, and if you spend a lot of time outdoors, yeah, you're gonna look older. I mean, it's just a reality check.
But still, yeah, it's definitely a weird, like, to realize they were actually supposed to be that far apart in age, and I had no idea for the longest time. And now they kind of look like they're the same age, or close. I don't know. I didn't think they looked that far apart back then. So good on Sam Neill, I guess. And I'm not saying Laura Dern looks bad. Laura Dern looks amazing. She is perfect. But I just, I don't know. I loved, ugh, I love Ellie Sattler so much, and having her back in this movie and getting to be such a badass was just it was great. Like, of course, it's great to have Malcolm back and to have Grant back, but for me, it was all about Ellie.
And what about the Doctor Wu?
Yeah, I meant to
We had
mention
him back
him.
too.
But he was weird. He was like so like what he was like all like sad in his cardigan all the time. Like, what's up with that? He was just sad in his cardigan all the time.
Well, I mean, he was sad because he thought he basically unleashed Armageddon.
And
Wouldn't
then
you?
he gets to undo it, and like there's no consequences apparently, is what we're supposed to believe. I'm glad that he undid it, but also there's no
Well, I mean, isn't that sort of like Tyrion and Game of Thrones? There's no
uh,
consequences.
I think that's just like life. Like a dude did a thing that was bad, and there will never be consequences. But I don't know. I mean, he's been in. I don't remember if he was in Fallen Kingdom. No, yes, he was. So he's been doing all these fucking crazy things, and then like now he feels bad. Like now you feel bad because in Jurassic World he was actually a huge asshole about it,
Right.
which was weird to me because I don't feel like he was an asshole in the first Jurassic Park movie. I felt like he was just doing his job. But then in Jurassic World, he was like, I did this thing. Look at what I did. And then now he's like feeling bad about it. And it's like, all right, man. I don't know. I think part of the reason I didn't bring him up was because it was like he was such a off the wall character over the course of all of these movies. Like he was in the first one, the fourth one, and the sixth one. And in the first one, he was just doing his job. In the fourth one, he was in the fifth one. In the fourth and fifth ones, he was like, look at all the fancy things I did. I created these dangerous dinosaurs. And then in the last one, he's like, oh shit, I created something bad finally. And it's like, no, you've created bad things a lot. Stop it. Just stop it. Well, on that note, any last thoughts on the Jurassic Park saga?
Well, I hope there's not another one for a long time.
Yeah, no.
I hope I'm wrong and they don't.
No.
It is the end, but
Yeah.
I suspect it will not be.
Not another movie, at least, but also
At least they didn't put it. Well, actually, at least they didn't put it at the tail end. Jurassic Park will return.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I mean, they had the whole thing where okay, so this place, the biosyn compound is now like a preserve, and they're gonna have to get all of these other dinosaurs from all the like that are just apparently spread all over the fucking world now back like into this preserve. So like there's a goal, I guess. But yeah.
No, we didn't. We didn't discuss the final large dinosaur on large dinosaur fight at the end.
No, but I mean, it's just reminiscent of all the other dinosaur on dinosaur fights, and in Jurassic World and in like Nate mentioned in Jurassic Park 3. So what it's the finger hand dinosaur. I don't even know what I should have looked this up. Like,
yeah,
it's
well,
the finger hand dinosaur and the Tyrannosaurus and the other one.
Yeah, which I can't remember the name of, but
It's another big bad. Like they're all just, and then at the end, the Tyrannosaur, you think it's dead, but boop, its eye opens. Good for that Tyrannosaur. It's living forever. Is that like I have to imagine that's the same Tyrannosaur who survived from Fallen Kingdom, who also survived from Jurassic World, and it's like, yeah, bitch, that Tyrannosaur is coming for y'all.
it was the same Tyrannosaurus Rex as in the original Jurassic Park.
I mean, it might be because, like, in the books, they bombed the fuck out of Isla Nublar, but they never did that in the movies. So it could, but also, like, it could be a transfer from Isla Sorna. We don't know. I'm gonna choose to believe it's the OG Tyrannosaur from Jurassic Park because that's what I choose to believe. But okay, well, on that note, as we close out the episode, we just want to give a shout out to our Heroes Tier Patreon, Tommy of the TKOK Podcast Network. Thanks so much for supporting us. Once again, I'm Tara along with Jonathan, and our special guest Nate had to leave a little bit early, but we are so thankful that he was able to join us. Thank you, as viewers or listeners, again for joining us for Sagas and Sass, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Good night.